the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'recho kamocha, as he said, that if a person speaks negatively about a fellow Jew, or it has no constructive value, one is in violation of v'ahavta l'recho kamocha. A Jew has an obligation to love his fellow as he loves himself. He explains, and he says this somewhere else, that a person can be fully well-versed in the laws of what you're permitted to say, what you're not permitted to say. But if a person has any level of negative feeling or lack of love for his fellow, and he's inclined to find fault in his fellow, although he understands he's not permitted to, it's always an issue of what? Suppressing. It's suppressing the urge or the inclination not to speak about your fellow. Why aren't you speaking? You're not permitted. A person loves a son, or whoever he loves, and you say, why don't you speak negative about him? Nobody's perfect. So you say, that's exactly the reason, because nobody's perfect. There's no reason to speak about him. So therefore, it's not a question of suppressing. The person would never even consider speaking about the person because he loves him or he values him with whatever context he loves that person. So therefore, if a person truly practices this perception of my fellow Jew is my brother, and he always puts him in a positive light, the person is not be the equivalent of pushing a boulder up a mountain. Chazal tell us that there's a mitzvah of Avas Hashem and there's a mitzvah of Yiras Hashem. To love God and to fear God, or to be fearful of God. If a person loves God, whenever a mitzvah presents itself, you're eager to do the mitzvah. It's not a question, it's an inertia. Because anything we have an interest in doing, especially if it's at a special level of personal interest, we do it without any difficulty. So if a person does a mitzvah out of love for God, in the words of Chazal, in the words of the Midrash, it's kidyukmo chadosha. It's like always a new proclamation being read of the king. The first time they read the proclamation of the king, people have no difficulty adhering to that. But over time, they tire of it. So if a person has love, it's always the first time. It's always as if it's the first moment. Therefore, you will never have difficulty performing the mitzvahs. So if you love your fellow as you love yourself, whether it's a question of helping your fellow, he needs a loan, he needs a favor, he needs advice, whatever he means, or he's in a position where he could be hurt, and you could prevent that from coming about, you would do it. Otherwise, person feels, I'm preoccupied with something else, and you let it happen. I always say that a person has a good friend, and he needs a loan, and you lend him the money, but he says that it's not really sufficient. He needs more than that. And if he doesn't give him more, they're going to foreclose on his house, which is something serious. Person goes and he strains himself, gives him a little bit more. He says, it's still not enough. Person says, I'm sorry, I can't do more. What I've done for you, I do for no one. And time passes, he has the exact same situation with his child. His child's going to be dispossessed. And when it comes to his child, he does beyond that. Much, much more than that. But you just said regarding you, good friend, your best friend, you couldn't do more. You've done all you could. So why for your son could you do more? The answer is because it's a different level of love. So based on the level of love that one has for his fellow, that will determine what is your maximum. And that's in life. I've done enough. I can't do more now. At this moment, you can't do more. It's only because of the level that you're at, one that feels he doesn't have the capacity to do more. But over time, as we advance, we realize we could do more. I always say, and I've said it in the past, that we have, which we're going to have it soon, when we come to the portion of Lech Lecha, the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos that God tested Avram with 10 tests. The most difficult of the tests was the Akedah, bringing his son as a sacrifice at the age of 37. If Avram would have been confronted with that test early on, not towards the end, Avram wouldn't have been able to deal and contend with that test. It would have been too difficult. But as we advance ourselves and we succeed in challenges, we realize, because of a level of growth and level of understanding, clarity, and internalization of value, we realize we could do even better. But we can only do better when we come to that level of realization. And it's a process. As we move forward, we realize through the experience, through the understanding, being touched, being spiritualized, we have different levels of capacity. The same thing regarding V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You have to practice it. A person who's naturally charitable, what we call a bal chesed. The Chafetz Chaim makes a point. He has a word called loving kindness. There are two terminologies. There's a person who's referred to as an osa chesed, a person who does kindness, and there's a person who's a bal chesed. He's a person of kindness. A person who does kindness, meaning if something presents itself, if it touches his fancy, he will do it. A bal chesed, that's his essence. His essence is that he's always looking to help another person. He's a person who does good deeds. That's his essence. It just has to present itself. But again, so it's because he has a sense of what it means to help another person, even though the opportunity didn't present itself, he's waiting for that opportunity to present itself. The other person says, when it presents itself, I will see if it meets my standard or my interest in support. When we speak about Avos Yisrael, do you love your fellow Jew or don't you? Conceptually, I do, but it depends who he is. It depends what he needs. It depends how serious the moment is. But a person who truly loves his fellow Jew, as one loves, it says kamocha, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, then initially, where is he starting off? He's starting off way ahead as a result of that, but of course there's always the growth issue that over time with experience, we continuously internalize it differently, and we're able to do more because of that.